So we're here with Senator Michael Bennet on primary day. You said in your speech to the volunteers that the campaign was built to be here on primary day, and you're here on primary day. What did you mean by that?
What I meant is that, there are a lot of other candidates that have dropped out of the race that didn't have the chance to actually, be here when people started casting their votes, and I wanted to be here when people started casting their votes. I didn't actually, when I set out to do that, I didn't know what I now know, which is people are less decided today than they were yesterday or 6 weeks ago about who they want to nominate, and but they're going to have to figure it out today.
You set a goal to finish top 3 in New Hampshire. What happens if you do?
If I do, I am heading to South Carolina and I'm heading to Nevada. I think it actually will be a real shot in the arm if I finish in the top 3 or 4 here. I think the fundraising will come in and people are going to say, yeah, you know what, we like this guy from Colorado and we think he's got an agenda that can actually unify the country. That's what I think would happen.
Do you have a South Carolina and Nevada plan right now that's happening, or would you be starting flat-footed there?
No, we're not flat-footed. Actually, I got a memo this morning from my staff that laying out various options for it this evening and tomorrow, and one of those options was heading to South Carolina and Nevada. So we'd have to move all these kids down there and send them out to Nevada, but that's what we could do. They would be willing to go, I think.
You've made a goal of finishing top 3. What if you don't?
We'll have to assess it, but it will be hard to get out of here if I don't finish in the top 3 or 4 here today. But I'm gonna look. I fought to be here. We'll see what happens tonight.
As soon as yesterday at this bakery in part of New Hampshire, you touted being part of 90 town halls and that you've been here more than any other candidate. At the end of the night last night, we were at Dartmouth College and a woman walked by, looked at all the signs, and she didn't know we were from Colorado, but she looked at us and she's like, "Who's Bennet?" You've been here that long. Should people still be saying, "Who's Bennet"?
Well, I mean, you're not going to get 100% name ID, but obviously I'm less well known than candidates that have spent more money on TV. We've been on TV here in New Hampshire as well, but a lot more people know me now than when we started, that's for sure, and I think we've done a good job of getting my name out there.
If you were outside when she said, "Who's Bennet," how would you answer that?
I'd say I'm Michael Bennet. I'm a senator from Colorado. Before that, I was in business and I ran the Denver Public Schools, which has 95,000 kids in it, and I'm running for president.
You made a point at the bakery, and I heard this in Iowa a year ago, about being brief, and you make a joke of it. Do you have a problem being brief?
I do, because it's a problem, and I gotta figure out how to correct it. I think it's funny because when I say that, usually there's somebody. Actually, yesterday somebody said, "No, we like this," and the reason I'm not brief is that these incredibly gray, nuanced issues, which we treat as black and white issues in our political rhetoric, I think, deserve a more comprehensive treatment, but that's not an excuse for going on too long. Room for improvement.
Okay. You're doing good here.
Thank you.
Being brief.
Yeah.
Someone at that event, at that bakery, said to us afterwards, "No offense to you, but I think he's running for vice presidency." How do you take that?
Well, I'm running for president. That's what I've been doing since I got in this race, so I'm glad they think enough of me to think that I might be a vice president.
Is this an expensive campaign to run for Secretary of Education for another Democrat who might be a nominee for president?
Definitely not. I don't have any interest in that job. If this doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to Colorado and run for re-election and continue to make a contribution to this country. We are at a moment where our democracy really is in peril. It is really at risk, and I feel very privileged to have the chance to try to rescue it for the next generation of Americans. That's what I'm going to keep trying to do.
Is there any cabinet position you would want?
I haven't thought of one, but I'll keep you posted.
How does this campaign make you a better senator for Colorado?
I think actually, I've thought a lot about that. I think that I've become a better candidate as a result of this campaign. I think that it's been reaffirming, in a sense, of the positions that I've taken over the 11 years that I've been in the Senate, because I actually think America, whether my campaign succeeds or doesn't succeed, I think that where Colorado is exactly where America is. And the direction that Colorado wants to go is the direction I think our country wants to go politically. So that's been reaffirming to me. I'm not surprised because Colorado is a pretty thoughtful place. And that cauldron that's a third, a third, a third.
40% now, it's 40%
That's
unaffiliated.
true.
It's
That's
changing.
True. I'm
You're
going to
gonna
have to change my talking points. I read that.
A couple years ago, when Brandon Ritterman was still at 9 News, we came to Washington, D.C., did a joint interview with you and Senator Cory Gardner. Do you still get along?
I think we still get along. I certainly have a high regard for him personally, and it's obviously this is a challenging moment in our politics. It's fraught. My friend John Hickenlooper is running against him, and I support John. That's not without its difficulties, but personally, I'm fond of Cory.
You voted to convict the president, to have him ousted from office. He's still there now, and you still have to pass legislation, write legislation that would ultimately need to be signed by President Trump.
Right.
How are you any good to Colorado over the next 2 years or possibly beyond as one of the votes that wanted him out of office?
Let's be serious about where we are for a moment. I mean, last year, the United States Senate voted on 26 amendments. We passed 8 amendments. There is nothing happening in Washington, D.C. under this president and under Mitch McConnell. And the only thing that he's doing with respect to Colorado right now is threatening to veto the CORE Act, which is the most important public lands bill that we've had for 25 years. So I think what would be best for Colorado would be for us to do everything we can do to make sure Donald Trump is a one-term president and that we replace him with somebody who actually cares about our kids and cares about our grandkids and cares about Colorado.
Is there anything you get along with the president?
I think that he was right to take on China. I think he did it in a way that was completely ham-handed, but I think he was right to do it. China for 20 years or more has taken advantage, to say the least, of the rest of the world because of their unfair theft of our intellectual property, state-sponsored businesses, I mean, a whole bunch of things that we need to be worried about. So I'm glad he took them on. It was long overdue. He just did it in a way that gave Xi all the leverage because Donald Trump, I'm afraid, doesn't really know how to negotiate a deal.
He'll be in Colorado a week from Thursday. Will you be in Colorado a week from Thursday?
I don't know where I'll be a week from Thursday. I have absolutely no idea where I'll be, but I'll let you know.
If you're there, is there any reason you would attend the rally or be part of anything that's happening around Colorado Springs with his visit?
No.
Coming back to this event, today people at the polls, I noticed, depending on where you live, you're going to have, your name could be at the top, your name could be in the middle, your name could be at the bottom.
Exactly.
How do you attract a vote of someone who may not know may recognize your name if they see it, if they can find it?
Yeah. Well, that's because they're randomly sequenced. The names are randomly sequenced, and I think there are more than 30 names on the ballot.
33.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I mean, people in New Hampshire are very educated voters, and they take this really seriously. And it's funny, sometimes I've seen sample ballots where it was Bennet Booker at the very top of the ballot, and I've seen them where we were at the very bottom of the ballot. So hopefully people will read to the end. If that's what's required.
There was that New York Times editorial that had the endorsement of Senator Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, and the article referenced as though you were no longer in the race. Your brother runs the opinion page of the New York Times. Have you talked with your brother about how could you have this editorial that suggests I'm no longer in the race?
I have not had a single conversation with my brother about this race, and he's not had a single conversation with me about this race, and I think that's the right way for us to have approached it.
One other family question is I saw there was an editorial from one of your daughters about why she's part of this. What is it like?
She couldn't get it published in the New York Times, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
I thought you had some pull with that. What is it like with the family, with 3 girls, trying to guide, I want to be president, you're still growing up, and I know this is a contentious time?
It's been amazing. And in ways, it's been the most rewarding part of all of this for me. when I was deciding whether to run or not to begin with, you've heard me tell the story about how I went home and Ann, the 15-year-old, said you should run, and I was amazed that she wanted me to run, but it actually turned out she wanted me to run, so she gave me out of the house during her 15th year. But my oldest daughter, Caroline, said, "Dad, if you run and tell the truth and you lose, no one can fault you for it." And I said to her, "Well, that's the only reason for me to run, and I think it's the only way I can win." And I actually believe that I'm meeting that standard, that I got into this race with a set of convictions about where the country needed to go. My convictions have not changed. I didn't change them for political reasons. And then on top of everything else, off and on, I've been able to have my kids come and be involved in this work, and Susan in Iowa and New Hampshire, and that's been, I would say that's been the privilege of a lifetime.
Since this interview is happening before we know any results, tonight, when you know top three, not top three, will you have an answer to tell people, I'm continuing to South Carolina and Nevada, or I'm done?
I think we should see what these results are tonight, and then we'll decide where I'm going to head next, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right?
Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, or thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I really
no.
appreciate it.
Come to my office in
Yeah.
New Hampshire anytime.
I know. Well,
I got to work on the signs.